We got an early Christmas present from the Kraken, and now we get a late Christmas present from the Kraken. I love the holidays. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Seattle Kraken pick up right where they left off at the start of the holiday break as they come back with another win. Their third now in a row, which is the first time this season they've won 3 straight. And I guess on the one hand, it's kind of disappointing that it's taken this long, but it's nice that we finally are here and getting a bit of a roll going here with the team. Also, their 7th straight game with points. So it's a nice welcome back from the longest break the Kraken have had between games to this point in the season, which I think says a lot too about how busy their schedule has been here in the early part of it, but they're finally starting to pick up those points consistently and now 3 wins in a row. So yeah, things are starting to look up and they now actually have a chance to be 500 with a win against the Flyers on Friday, come the Winter Classic. And actually, while we're looking ahead to the near future for the Kraken, which hopefully this falls in that category, it was good news coming into this game that Burakovsky actually made the road trip with the team to Calgary and skated before the game, which usually a player that's going to be out for a while would not bother making this trip, so it might be a good sign that he could be back sooner than we might have thought. As for the guys that actually played in this game for the Kraken, though, there were a couple of changes in the Kraken lineup. One being that Riker Evans was back in the starting lineup in the place of Schultz, and 2, that Chris Driedger gets his first NHL start, and obviously first start with the Kraken, since the inaugural season following that injury that he had in the offseason after that year at the Worlds, then rehabbing most of last season and a little stint at the AHL level where he stayed at the beginning of this season before coming up for the Grubauer injury. And real quick, as for why it wasn't Decord in net in this game after a fantastic stretch for the Kraken in the 2 weeks leading up to the Christmas break and then having a 3-day break, so he should be fresh even with all of those starts in a row. Honestly, I think it just comes down, well, we don't really know for sure. Hackstall, all he had to say was there's a lot of factors that go into it, so at least my opinion anyway, and take that for what it's worth to you, but I think this one really just came mostly down to the team wanted to get a start for Driedger here, and not just continuously have him sitting on the bench getting colder and colder and colder, with it being longer and longer since he last played in a live game. Obviously that being at the AHL level, where he'd been playing pretty well for the Firebirds before coming up for the Grubauer injury. And it is important to get a goaltender a start here and there, even if he is a true backup like Driedger has been. Now, obviously, Driedger was fantastic in this game, but I still don't necessarily think that changes the plan here for the Kraken. They get a start for Driedger, and then still get Decord a chance to have a start before likely playing as the starter in the Winter Classic. Of course, with that being said, it has also been Hackstall's tendency to start the hot hand when it comes to goaltending, and reward goaltenders for a particularly good outing like Driedger definitely had in this one, by letting them start the following game. Still, I think this start was not a comment on, obviously, Decord has been hot coming into the break. I think it was more they just really wanted to find that start for Driedger, and this was the place that it made sense, so that Decord can have that one more start on normal NHL settings before going outdoors. I don't think it really makes a lot of sense to have Decord start the outdoor game as his first game back after what would then be about a week-long break. Actually, a little bit over a week at that point. Either way, only time will tell what the Kraken decide to do in net here over the next couple of games. I can't imagine they wouldn't start Decord in net for the Winter Classic after what he's done so far this season, but nothing's for sure, obviously. And for what it's worth, they do now have a decision to make because of how good Driedger was in this first game back in over a year and a half. So even though it wasn't Decord in net for this one, Driedger picks up right where he left off with fantastic Kraken goaltending coming out of the Christmas break. And it's a good thing he does too, because as we get into the game, right out of the gates, the Flames test him a couple of times early on. And I suppose that kind of also points out, as we would find out especially in the second period, that the Kraken kind of did also pick up where they left off in that Anaheim game by not necessarily playing their best full 60-minute game. They still, for the second game in a row, managed to win in spite of that, but they did allow the Flames to really test Driedger in this one. Even in spite of that, though, just over 2 minutes in, the Kraken are able to stretch out the ice. Actually, it was kind of the Flames who stretched things out as they get a rush chance towards the Kraken end, which Dunn defends well, gets the puck to the boards, and then wins a battle to get to the puck first, flinging it right off the boards out into the neutral zone, way away from where he was, so a long stretch pass here that catches Yamamoto in stride for the breakaway. He skates in and buries it into the back of the net, just over the pad and past the blocker of Markstrom to give the Kraken the 1-0 lead. So for the Kraken, after not getting a shot on goal up till this point in the game, they score on that first shot on goal, even with all the pressure that they had allowed at their end of the ice leading up to that. Which I gotta say, especially after all the times that kind of thing has happened to the Kraken, or against the Kraken, especially in that inaugural season, but it's happened some other times since then, kind of nice to see it happen the other way. Not that it's the first time, but yeah, it's nice to be on the other end of it. And not only that, but they're able to use Yamamoto's 7th goal of the season, assisted by Dunn and Larson, to really start to, well, slowly build some momentum in their favor, certainly slow down the momentum that Calgary had been building through the first couple of minutes in their favor. But eventually that comes to an end with a Calgary power play, as Dumoulin in the defensive end sends a puck clean over the board, so it's delay of game, and the Kraken go to the kill, which unfortunately they do not spend very long on, as just 7 seconds in, the Flames win the faceoff. They get it down to the net where Alexiak and Driedger have, I don't know if it was a miscommunication or what. Ultimately, it's Alexiak's mistake that sends the puck right up into the slot onto the tape of a Flames player. He goes around, kind of pulling Driedger out of the net. I do think Driedger kind of pulled himself a little bit too far out of the net, but either way, it allows Sharangovich to get around him. Driedger now out of the crease entirely, and while Sharangovich isn't quite able to tuck it in around the post, he does send a pass. I think he kind of missed trying to tuck it in. Either way, it turns into a pass right out into the high slot, or actually low slot right in front of the crease, where Kadri is able to finish it into the basically empty net right through Larson to tie things up at 1, which is where the score would stay all the way through the end of the first period and through 2 Kraken power plays, the first of which comes almost immediately after the Flames score on their power play. The Kraken really not able to get anything whatsoever going on that one. In fact, I don't think they get a shot on goal or maybe even a shot attempt during that power play. And then their second one does come after they'd built some momentum through the back half of the second period. And while they do get one decent chance on that power play, it doesn't end up in the net, and it was the only shot they got on net during that power play. So 2 Kraken power plays, 1 extra shot on goal, and we go to the second, still tied at 1. And if there was a stretch in this game that really put on display that these are 2 teams coming off of a holiday break where they all went their separate ways, didn't think about hockey for a few days, and then came back after having enjoyed themselves with some rust to knock off, it was probably this second period, as it was a pretty sloppy period, really both ways, but the Kraken are the ones that had to kind of survive it for the most part, as they really let the Flames start to get momentum towards the middle part of the period, and eventually send them to another power play. Which, it has to be said, the only reason the Kraken survived this one is because of Chris Driedger in net, as he came up with a couple of pretty big saves on this power play, and then had to continue to make some big saves, as with 11 seconds left in the first Flames power play, McCann gets caught for tripping, and it's going to be 11 seconds of 5-on-3 before more Flames power play. All of which the Kraken are able to survive thanks to a couple more nice saves from Driedger, one in particular where he's able to make a very nice post-to-post diving back pad save to just barely keep the puck out of the net. Which I suppose was kind of an answer to McCann very nearly scoring off the back of Markstrom in that power play. The one shot the Kraken got in that power play at the end of the first period, that one kind of rolled off the back of Markstrom right along the goal line, and if it had just rolled, backwards into the net, the Kraken would have scored. Either way, both goaltenders come up with big saves to somehow keep the puck just off the goal line and then out of the net. Thankfully for the Kraken, and Chris Driedger especially, after the Kraken and he are able to kill off these back-to-back slightly overlapping power plays, they are finally able to kind of calm things down and collect themselves a little bit, pull it together, and start to play a little bit cleaner hockey through the end of this period, which they kind of turn a little bit in their favor really for the first time in the period, right in the last couple of minutes. They don't get anything out of it though, so we do go to the third period, still tied at 1. Unfortunately, however, it's that sloppiness that shows right back up at the start of the third period for the Kraken, as they allow a rush chance back the other way that Tanev's basically forced to take a penalty on to prevent it from being a one-on-one chance with Driedger. So Tanev goes to the box within the first couple minutes of the third, and the Flames get yet another chance on the power play, which once again, they nearly take advantage of to get the lead here 2-1 early on in the third. But once again, Driedger comes up huge for the Kraken with a couple of big saves on this power play to keep things tied, and after they get to the end of it, they start to turn things back the other way, get a couple of rush chances, and eventually, it's one of those rush chances for the Kraken that sees a beautiful pass from McCann as he enters the offensive zone along the boards, get it up to Wennberg as he splits the remaining defensemen, and then fires off a shot. Yes, Wennberg shooting the puck instead of passing it to Tanev, who was on the far side, though he would have had to get it through a defenseman, but he fires off this shot and just finds the tiniest little gap high on the short side past the blocker of Markstrom and into the back of the net to give the Kraken the 2-1 lead. So for Wennberg, it's a picture-perfect shot that gets him his 5th of the season. McCann and Borgen, the 2 assists on the play, and the Kraken have a third period lead, which they have been very good at maintaining here over this last stretch of games. And maintain this one they do all the way through the final horn. They actually had the best scoring chance throughout the remainder of the game. Now, Driedger did still have to make a couple more saves as the Flames finally did get the empty net with a couple minutes left, but the Kraken are able to ice this one away and come away with that 2-1 win, their third in a row, and all three of those coming on the road. So once again with this game for the Kraken, they really do, in a lot of different ways, pick up right where they left off going into the break with that game against the Ducks as they come out of it here against the Flames. They get their third win in a row, even if, like that game against the Ducks, it wasn't necessarily the prettiest 60 minutes of hockey they've ever played. It certainly was not what I would call a full 60-minute effort. That second period, the middle of the second period in particular, did leave a lot to be desired with the sloppiness the Kraken were playing with. It was fortunately met with some sloppiness the other way as well, which helped them get through it, but yeah, a bit of some holiday rust to knock off there. They get through it though and still get those important 2 points in the standings. And importantly, a regulation win on top of that, which means the Flames don't get anything, and that could be a big deal, as this could very well be a Flames team that the Kraken are fighting for a wildcard spot with come the end of the season. Now, both teams would have to continue to play a little bit better than they have to this point in the season as a whole to get to that point, but it is a very possible scenario that the Kraken could be in. Now, I will say that even when the Kraken were playing sloppy in this game, and really this was true throughout the entire thing, even when they were playing well, and has been true of this team now for a good stretch of games, they were playing very well in their defensive end while the opponent had the puck at not giving up those secondary chances after the first shot got on net. Part of that was Driedger doing a good job of controlling rebounds or just not giving up any rebounds, but when they were there, the Kraken had much more presence out in front of their net to not allow any dangerous chances from the slot or those close-up areas next to the net to come off of those rebound opportunities. And this is a defensive structure now that the Kraken have really started to have a lot of success with here over these last few games, and I think might be playing a bit of a role in some of those incredible stats that we've seen from the goaltenders, as they've really started to lock down the middle of the ice in their defensive end, and while they still do send one or two forwards to go out and challenge the passes out around the outside, they seem perfectly happy to allow the opposing team to have that outside and take shots from out there, and then just prevent any secondary chances, which then does lead to large shot totals like we saw in this game. The Flames end up with 38 shots on goal, Driedger saves 37 of those, but like we've seen in a lot of these games, not a ton of those came from dangerous locations or off of dangerous plays. There were a couple of very nice saves like the one on the power play, but for the most part they came from the outside and were pretty manageable for Driedger. Though once again, that is in no way to take away whatsoever from the performance that Driedger had in his return to the NHL, which was again incredible, and I think we can use to transition our way into the Kraken 3 stars for this one. As always, they are brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon. If you want to be part of helping decide these Kraken 3 stars after each and every one of the Kraken's games, you can help support the channel a little bit more than you already are by watching to this point by going to the link down below to Patreon and supporting over there as well. And obviously, with the first star in this game, the official first star, and certainly the one here, it's pretty obviously Chris Driedger with 37 saves on 38 shots, and although again a lot of them did come from the outside and were manageable for him, he still had to make all those saves, and he did come up with a couple of very big ones, especially on the penalty kills throughout the game. And again, and I know I've already mentioned this a couple of times, but this would have been a fantastic performance from any goaltender, even one that's been hot for a stretch of time like Decord, for example. But to see this kind of performance in a first game back after missing a year and a half for Driedger, I think that adds a little bit more of the impressive element to this outing for him. As for the second and third stars, there's any number of guys to choose from. There were a lot of good individual efforts from this game at both ends of the ice from all sorts of different Kraken players. It would be easy enough to go with the two Kraken goal scorers, Yamamoto and Wennberg, and I suppose with the second star I'll go with one of them. I'll go with Alex Wennberg for the second star in this game. He honestly, I think, has been quietly pretty good for the Kraken this season in his own Wennberg way. He isn't going to shoot the puck a lot, therefore he's probably not going to score a lot. When he does shoot it, he's pretty good at it, which makes it kind of frustrating that he doesn't shoot it more. But either way, Wennberg has been good for this team. A lot of their power play goals actually have happened with him screening the goaltender to allow that puck to get in without him being able to see it cleanly. So yeah, he's had a lot of those quiet contributions that just don't necessarily show up on a lot of the conventional stat measurements. And then with the third star, I honestly did want to go with Yamamoto, even Will Borgen I certainly considered, but in the end I think I'm going to go with Vince Dunn. Dunn does have that incredible pass that let Yamamoto loose on that breakaway, which he scores on, So that obviously got the Kraken off to a good start there in the first few minutes of the game. But he was very good for the Kraken defensively throughout this game as well. Offensively, didn't show up quite as much throughout the rest of the game after that fantastic release pass for Yamamoto. But this is a game where the Kraken had to weather a good number of shots, and considering he is a part of that first pair that tends to spend the most time on the ice, he is a big part of that defensive effort that the Kraken have had here over the last stretch of games, keeping things to the outside and not allowing those secondary chances that we talked about. So for Dunn, it has been a fantastic season defensively, which has not necessarily been his strong point so far to this point in his career, so to see him really continue to develop that part of his game has been fantastic to watch, especially as he does look to be a big part of this team's future with that extension in the offseason. But as always, I'd love to know what you think down in the comment section below, who your 3 stars would be, how you're liking this 3-game winning streak for the Kraken, and how you like their chances of getting to 500 come the Winter Classic, with hopefully a win at home against the Flyers. A very good Flyers team, surprisingly good, but they are good, so we'll see how that game goes. But until then, if you have made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, the buttons for that kind of stuff down below helps support the channel. Like and subscribe, of course, so I'd appreciate using them. And yeah, until that next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken!